News when you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Ed Kalegi. Secretary of State Marco Rubio says Europe's fate is intertwined with the U.S. while faulting the continent for what he said was a drift away from their shared Western values. The double-edged message offered some reassurance to allied leaders gathered at the Munich Security Conference, but did little to temper their push for more independence from Washington. Rubio spoke with Bloomberg News editor-in-chief John Micklethwaite and also talked about the vested interest the U.S. has with Europe when it comes to China.
We should never be in a situation where our alliance and our respective countries are vulnerable to extortion or blackmail because someone controls 99% of something that's critical to national life. So I think we do have a vested interest in that regard. Today is different than yesterday, but it has parallels, not in that China's the new Soviet Union, but that in our future, collectively, we'll be stronger if we work on these things together.
Secretary Rubio speaking with Bloomberg News editor-in-chief John Micklethwaite. While U.S. inflation has cooled from its pandemic-era peak, prices at grocery store meat counters are skyrocketing with no relief in sight. Beef costs have risen faster than most other items in the Consumer Price Index, with the broad beef and veal category up 15% over the past year as of January. Uncooked ground beef reached a fresh record after soaring by the most since June 2020 in government data released Friday. The gains are a standout from the rest of the consumer grocery basket, where things have broadly improved. Chicken prices rose by only 1.1% in the past 12 months, while milk was little changed. President Trump's crackdown on Venezuela is costing the U.S. billions, Bloomberg's Monica Ricks reports.
Operations around Venezuela have pulled in nearly a fifth of the U.S. Navy's surface fleet, costing more than $20 million a day at its peak from mid-November to mid-January. That includes vessels in the Caribbean, air support, and dozens of special forces that not only led to the eventual capture of President Nicolas Maduro, but also helped beef up the overall military posture in the region. Bloomberg estimates costs have surged near $3 billion so far. And while the Pentagon hasn't commented, most of that money is covered by defense funding that's already been allocated. Monica Ricks, Bloomberg Radio.
The European Central Bank is prepared to offer euro liquidity to monetary authorities from around the world, an effort to prevent market tensions and increase global use of the single currency. In a statement Saturday, the Frankfurt-based institution says it will extend repo lines to all central banks unless excluded on the grounds of, in particular, money laundering, terrorist financing, or international sanctions, adding that the changes will apply as of the third quarter. The move to make euros more readily available reflects Europe's broader efforts to redefine its place in a global order upended by President Trump. After years of restraint following the 2008 global financial crisis, Wall Street is handing CEOs a record payout. Chief executive officers at the top U.S. banks all received annual compensation of at least $40 million, with their total pay surpassing records set in 2006 and 2021. Bank of America's Brian Moynihan was the latest CEO to have his pay disclosed, with his compensation rising 17% last year to $41 million. Citigroup said this week that it boosted the pay of CEO Jane Fraser 22% to $42 million for 2025, a sign of confidence from the board about her ability to turn the company around after years of underperforming peers. Just in time for tax season, the Treasury Department and the IRS have released new guidance on restrictions to clean energy tax credits under President Trump's tax and spending cut law. Bloomberg's Nathan Hager has more from Washington.
The guidance provides more details on prohibited foreign entity rules, which require clean energy developers to limit contracts and supplies from China, Russia, and other covered nations. The specific rule is related to what's called the Material Assistance Cost Ratio. Companies have to calculate it so they make sure components from those countries don't exceed a certain amount. Tax practitioners say this is one of the more complex areas in the new tax law. In Washington, I'm Nathan Hager, Bloomberg Radio.
Western officials say China increased its support for Russia's war in Ukraine in 2025 and is likely to deepen cooperation with Moscow further this year, casting doubt on efforts by European leaders to improve relations with Beijing. President Xi Jinping has become more assertive and confident in his supporting Russia's Vladimir Putin, and attempts by the Europeans to persuade their Chinese counterparts to help end the war have become more challenging over the past year. Russia's war in Ukraine would not be able to continue without ongoing Chinese support, particularly the export of dual-use components and critical minerals used in Russian drone production. The Trump administration is moving ahead with a plan to remake the U.S. immigration detention system. Bloomberg's Amy Morris has details from Washington.
The Detention Reengineering Initiative is a $38.3 billion plan that calls for acquiring and renovating detention centers, adding processing sites, and taking control of existing facilities to create an efficient detention network. This new network will increase bed capacity by more than 92,000 and is expected to be fully implemented by November, funded through congressional allocations under the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. In Washington, Amy Morris, Bloomberg Radio.
Checking the medal count at the Winter Olympics, Norway leads with 20, Italy is second with 18, the U.S. third with 17. That's news when you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Ed Kalegi. This is Bloomberg.